I'm going to call the meeting to order. Normally, it's the board chair's job to call a meeting to order, but on a reorganization night, it's the superintendent that calls it to order. Once we vote in a board chair, then the board chair takes over. But I first would like to go around the table here and introduce, because we have new members, and I think that would be a great way to start. You can start, Samantha.
I'm Samantha. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the junior student rep.
I'm Laura Taylor. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the one of the reps from Essex.
I'm Erin Knox, and I'm one of the representatives from the city.
I'm Christine Gaynor-Patterson, newly elected Essex Junction rep.
Gretchen Bates, she, her pronouns, Essex Town, newly elected.
I'm Jemima Talbot, she, her, Essex Town.
Oliver Sami from Essex Junction.
Scott Brown, Essex Junction. Robert Carpenter from Essex Town.
Beth Cobb from Essex, superintendent.
Heather Bushy, she, her pronouns, and I'm the director of finance.
And Brian Donahue, he, him pronouns, and I am a Essex Junction resident and the chief operating officer for EWSD.
Andre Roy, representative from Westford, the greater metropolis.
Thank you, Andre. All right, thanks for the introductions. So do I have a nomination for the chair?
I would like to nominate Robert Carpenter if he's up for another round.
Me too with that. There you go.
Thank you, Andre. Any other nominations? Do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Robert, any other nominations? Discussion? I have a motion for Robert Carpenter to be board chair of the Essex Westford School District.
Oh, so moved. Sorry.
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Congratulations. I will start it over.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And this year has been an interesting year, an unprecedented year. And before we get started, I just wanted to name the situation that we're in and why we are meeting here tonight. I know that this has been an unprecedented year, but also it seems out of the ordinary to hold a meeting so quickly and with many other things going on in a different location. I just want to name that it's different than normal. And we as a board really believed when the budget did show up as being failed, we as a board felt we need to act as quickly as possible for the sake of our schools, for the sake of our students, and for the sake of our community, and that is our duty as elected officials to act with expediency. So with that tonight, before we get into conversation around the budget, we do need to finish our reorganization. So with that, at this point, I would be looking for nominations for board vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Laura.
Laura, do you accept the nomination? Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Scott Brown.
Scott, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Any other nominations? We will take a vote, and the way this will work is whoever obtains the most votes then would be within that position. So what I will do is start with Laura first and choose the first nominee. So all in favor of, and just to be clear as chair, I do feel that I don't vote unless there's a tiebreaker, just out of fairness and given not choosing anyone. So if there's a tiebreaker, then I will vote. So Laura, all in favor of Laura for vice chair? Okay, so 4 for Laura, and then Andre, so 4.5.
Actually, because I'm the only Westford rep, isn't it a full vote?
Nope. So there is another Westford rep, but that Westford rep unfortunately is unable to be here this evening because of travel. So it would be a half vote tonight, Andre. So
okay, I thought it was I understood it'd be a full vote with an absence of the other member, but okay.
So 4.5 for Laura, and then all in favor of Scott. So 4.5 would be over with the individuals that we have. All right, thank you, Laura. So you are now vice chair. I do want to say to Scott, thank you for your service over this past year. It has been extremely helpful in the partnership and the collaboration throughout this year. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Again, congratulations to Laura. Well done.
I'm gonna bug you so much.
At this point in time, I'd be looking for nominations for board clerk.
I'd like to nominate Marlon Barasami.
Marlon, please step in. Are there any other nominations for board clerk? Sorry, I'll try one of these. With that, since Marlon accepted and the nomination was made, all in favor of Marlon as board clerk?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion passes. Marlon, thank you very much and congratulations. Thank you. I know we can go around for introductions, but there's two things that I want to do. Number one, I know we have a few former board members and even past board members in the crowd as well. Thank you, those of you out there, for your service to this district and the legacy that you have left for our district. And also, I would like to welcome our 3 new board members, one of which isn't able to be here tonight, but from Essex Junction, that's its town. So Gretchen and Christine, thank you both for running, for your willingness to serve and your willingness to be here this evening. Thank you so much. And welcome. With that, our agenda has the board members' code of conduct that we will be going through at each reorganization meeting. We do go through the code of conduct and the governance norms and protocols. But given the amount of public here tonight, I would like to shift that to after public comment to give the public an opportunity to speak first. So the way we'll be doing public comment tonight, as always, is each individual will have 2 minutes to speak. We ask that all comments be directed to the board, not to other members of the public. During public comment, we are unable to answer questions. This is a time for the board to listen to feedback from our community. And we just ask that we maintain good decorum. We ask for no shouting or foul language. And just remember, as always, students are watching and we want to keep them centered and focused. Again, I really appreciate you all being here this evening. I do apologize for the space in terms of chairs, but you can feel free, because we're in a small room, to speak directly from where you're at. What I would ask, just so that we don't kind of get mixed up with who's going when, if you would just raise your hand if you'd like to make public comment. I will call upon you. If you could just say your name and then the town or Westford, just so that we can have that for the official record.
Mr. Chair, since we don't have our normal setup here right now, do you want me to be timer?
Sure.
All right. Yeah. I'll give a 30-second out for folks and then 10 seconds so they know what the time is.
So if anyone would like to make public comment tonight, if you could just raise your hand and then let's go ahead and call you. I don't see you. Go ahead.
The first pleasure I have. I do want to make a few comments and just a reflection. How much time do I have? 2 minutes. It might be a little bit short.
I'll give you a 30-second call.
Okay. I think I've seen a lot of, over my 50 to 60 years in Vermont, a lot of these changes that occurred on a massive basis and they affect the population. In this state and in this community, even in the greater area of Chittenden County, recovery from recessions and so forth take a long time and much longer than most states in the United States. So when you see that it's basic inflation compared to other states, it's not apples and apples. And it depends on the regions, structure, income, population. So I had some thoughts about the vote, and here they are. Just 3 or 4 points. If we had 3 no votes, the 87% of this year's budget, in my judgment, would be a disaster for this district. So I think it's important that you really look at that, not only from the 87%, but also It's a 5-year problem. This problem is not going away. It's 20% per year is basically what we're taking, or 30%. It's hard for me, probably including inflation, but it's hard for me to fathom this without a major restructuring of the district. And one of the suggestions I made was to close the West 30 school. That was one. So prioritize it. And there was a time here when we were handling significant more students within the building capacity that we have. And that is an alternative, and I still believe we can save up to $2 million a year by closing that school and taking decisive action. But it's really important to recognize the public needs feedback on what this looks like for the next 5 years. And I'll be looking for that in the outcomes. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else like to make public comments? Or around the corner? Go ahead.
I need you guys behind me though. My name is Chrissy Holford. I teach at Hiawatha and I'm also a longtime education resident. And I have to get my large font here that is, so we recently learned of the cutting in the next cut, the instructional coaches will be cut. So we are all in here on behalf of Gary McFarland, our instructional coach. Yeah, 2 minutes. In the spring of 2022, Hiawatha Elementary and Summit Street School were honored and recognized for becoming Vermont's first 2 schools to be named Model Professional Learning Communities, a title that both schools carry proudly to this day, and that only a couple hundred schools hold across all of the United States. The accomplishment of being named a professional learning community isn't something that is achieved and then forever granted to your school. A high-functioning professional learning community requires strong leadership in the role of an instructional coach. An instructional coach that goes above and beyond for their learning community to ensure the growth of all students. An instructional coach that creates a culture of collaboration and empowerment for all stakeholders. It's evident that Kaylee plays a crucial role in the success and recognition of the schools within the district as a dedicated instructional coach. Her impact on the development of professional learning communities and overall quality of education would be greatly missed if the position were to be cut.
30 seconds.
Her dedication and hard work are essential to the success of the schools she supports. It's clear that her dedication and hard work, I'm repeating myself, that's my last line, are essential to our schools that she supports. Thank you.
Volunteer like we do. Yeah.
So would you like to make a public comment? Oh, I'm sorry, I I wasn't sure. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lorraine Zaloon. I recognize some people here tonight. I live in Essex. I grew up in Essex Junction. I lived out of state for 30 years before we returned. First and foremost, everyone here has been through a lot in the last few years. So I'd like to recognize that collectively we're going through a thing. And certainly in terms of the budget, I think that we have a lot of work to do. I heard that we had no contingency budget set in case it failed, which is very disappointing to me because there were clear signs that it was going to fail. But why, in terms of being reactionary, why wouldn't we have a second budget already at the ready so that we can campaign and hit the ground running? I find that very disheartening. Also, I found I don't have kids in the system. I do have family in the system. That we've eroded trust with public. It's a big problem to me when I see the very first line up on the agenda that says this is a meeting of public, not a public meeting. That has no meaning to me or relevance. When I look at all the public hearing laws, that does not engender people to show up. I find it sounds arrogant to me as well. The shutting down of people like me who was exposed to the virus today to not really be able to access online is also problematic. It is not welcoming for people who have troubles with health. So that's another sign that you guys can shut down the public, that you don't look at us as partners, and that for whatever reason, you guys don't feel we're partners, and same vice versa. The vote that happened is an indication of the erosion of trust. When I looked at the demographics, the bulk of the people in our town, I didn't look at Essex Junction, Westford, but it was 69% of the households have no children. And so in terms of the information that we get out there, it's not hitting the right people. I would like to know how many people didn't vote, how many parents didn't vote. I would look at those demographics and see where we're falling short. I would love to have a public working group that we have members of the public actually working with board, working with superintendent. And the reason I voted yes and not vote no is because I don't trust the administration to make the right cuts. That's the most disturbing to me. When I looked at the salaries at the top end, they're much higher than the average in the state, including superintendents, which is not very far below the top executive position in the state of our government. So that was shocking to me that it was that high. So I think we have a lot of work and we can do this together. I'm not here as a foe, I'm here as a friend. I've done a lot of work, political work, I've helped school budgets pass. I'm down for it. I want people to know what's at stake. If we do not pass the budget, a lot is at stake. We really need to get that information out there first and foremost. Thank you.
Good. Tim Kemmer, I'm from Essex Junction. Quick comments. Hopefully, I guess it's just a recommendation. It's something that Brian will remember when we were on the U46 board. I think this might not have been used that much recently, and I don't know if it still exists, but I think it was really great. I think it could help cut through some of the explanations. There was a rubric that was like 3 parts. What's the must-have? What's the, like, we think it's really important and the community wants this. We think we want to have this stuff. And then there was what's the nice to have. And so I think that rubric does a really good job to help, explain a lot of the things that the public doesn't always understand, like what's required by law, all of these things. And so that's in the must-have. So then that becomes easy, and then it could be a way to really help do that. And that goes for, inside the schools, it goes for administration, it goes for all the parts of the budget. So that way, okay, you get this kind of picture for, well, here's what, we have to have, we want to try to keep this, okay, we think the community wants to keep these things. And here's what is nice to have, but we think now we may not be able to do that this year. And just one last comment, I did vote yes on the budget. I want to be supportive. My wife's a teacher. But I was reluctant. And one of the reasons I was reluctant because I saw things in the budget that didn't look like we did the due diligence. Like it looked like positions getting added that I didn't think were must have. Maybe they were, I don't know the detail, but like that didn't look like the right thing to be doing. Like why were we doing that? It was a 0 budget in last year, and then it was now over at 6 figures, and so like that didn't look like we did the work. I think we got to do it now, but maybe using that rubric, so.
Thank you for holding this meeting, and hello, everyone. I've been 40+ years in the community here. I've had a lot of community service that many people in this room have had. And so thank you for the opportunity you're giving the community tonight. I'm not going to get into the details or into the weeds on anything. I do want to let you know that many of us feel like it's not just Essex Westford School District. This is going on across the state. As you know, many budgets are going down. People are having a hard time fathoming 20% increase. The ripple effect of that is huge. So in order to help you, help us help you, there is a committee being developed as we speak. It's the Citizens Budget Review Committee. They will come together and develop recommendations to you regarding the next budget that's presented to the community. And if anyone's interested in this committee or being on this committee, it is people from across the entire district. Please reach out. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and step out a little bit. I like to watch the timer behind Mark. So I'm Meredith Albers. I'm an Essex Junction resident. I came to a school board meeting a couple months ago. And happened to find out about this emergency one short minute because I live right here in Green. I do live right here. I live right across the street from the high school where, you know, we recently had some not great impressions for the community. I'm glad I didn't plan to watch the solar eclipse from the parking lot because it was barricaded. You know, the winter weather that suddenly caught people by surprise that all the predictions were showing. The last time I spoke for the board, I was indicating that this is tough times and the decisions we make and the things we cut are what really matter. And perception is something that is really huge. The perception that we're not getting all of the information, that decisions are being made without enough information consideration is pretty rampant in the community right now. I think we all know that this is the result not just of the district, this is of the entire state. If it is, you know, the community revolting against the state, I would expect to see the election results for our state representatives to be very similar. If they're not, it is a referendum on the school district and the actions of the district. And it's just that extra fuel to the fire that's causing these folks to fail. In a community that has always been known for massively supporting education, I think they're speaking out and they're saying, it's not our school anymore. We don't know what this is. We need more information before we can support it. And it just hasn't been provided. So, I need that.
Hi, my name is George Finley. Worked for IBM for 40 years, retired now. And I've gone through every downsizing that IBM has had in Vermont's history. And every time something like that would happen, we would have to regroup and kind of get down to food and shelter. Basically, was the last one. It's like, okay, what can we do here to, you know, get right size and so forth. I guess personally, I don't know, you know, if there's a line by line item that groups maybe that are proposed could go through to see, you know, to get an educated input to, you know, what we kind of, you know, believe would be areas to cut or whatever. Being retired is, you know, our taxes are going up and you know, an increase like that really takes a lot out of, you know, the family budget basically. So I'd, you know, like to be better informed. I mean, that's why I voted no for the budget, is because I don't really know all what's in there, and it's kind of, again, year after year, it kind of seems like it has just always gone up. It's like, okay, what, you know, what are the causes that, and what, you know, what can be trimmed, or maybe even turn into some volunteer stuff or whatever, that people in the community, if something had to be cut that folks were passionate about, maybe, you know, like a community could step up and somehow, you know, fill that void. Again, I'd just like to maybe be part of, you know, my line of what is on the budget, and just, you know, be better educated for, you know, where all these costs are coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Any further public comment?
I'll just make a quick statement because I did a lot of the door knocking as I campaigned. My name is Tim Miller. I'm a resident of Essex Junction and just finished a campaign for city council. And as I door knock and walk to the community and engage people, there are a hard line of folks who just don't feel like they're being heard, who look at the call for administrative cuts to be turned to teacher cuts, that then there's no movement on the administration. People are more than eager to talk about the school budget. And in fact, I kind of had to steer them away as I wanted to get to city issues. But there's a hard line in Essex Junction of people that want to see cuts from the top. And the message that seems to be coming out is that it's not there. So the onus is on the board to get that information out, whether or not they're actually happening. But when they see the frontline teachers coming, you're going to end up at July 1 without a school budget because it's not, the information isn't getting to them. And what they feel like they're telling you isn't being heard. And so I just want to put that out there to the board. I spent months out in the public, and that was really the general consensus from people.
Thanks. Any public comments this evening? Diane?
Hey, I was over there a few days ago. But I really lived here for most of my life. I would like to say that after running into polls for the day on Tuesday, I heard a lot of comments. And I would say that we need to have a community chat. And it's back and forth. That's not I talk to you and you sit there and listen and digest it. This is like you talk to me, I talk to you, and we talk back to each other. And hopefully we get a communication going because it's in desperate need. I read today that Vermont Diggers got an article that says that a 15% increase across the board for the next 3 years is coming down the pipe, and it isn't just us. So that when we talked about having proposed 2 or 3 year budget, sounds like it's time, gang. And it's not going to be pretty. So just gotta suck it up and move on. So I don't envy your position, but I know exactly where you're sitting. And please make a very good one because I don't want to run another poll. Okay, I had a 60-hour day is enough. Once or twice a year, 4 times a year is enough. The community, if you need to talk to them because they're going to keep voting no until they understand. Okay, so please do your best. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. 15 seconds. Perfect. So everyone has the two, if there's other stuff, you can also email the board as well, just so everyone has to take note.
Just real quick, capitalism is not a cow that should be milked. It should be viewed more as a bull that will pull everybody forward. And just, I think, you know, we could all help each other. There's no, our kids are the best future. Everybody wants the best future for all of us in this room. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. So we all want to help. God bless.
Thank you. Yep.
We understand in some of the conversations that have happened is that a lot of the costs are due to state mandates. It would be good to put out a list of what exactly those state mandates are so that they can be brought up with our representatives. So maybe that those can be addressed. Thank you. Right.
Hi, my name is Lee Handren. I've been a resident of Athletic Junction for 5 years now. I'm the speech language pathologist at Summer Street School. Obviously, I'm pretty young, don't know much about a budget. So kind of piggybacking off what everybody said, I don't know a lot. I actually barely know anything, but all I've heard in my school community is that people are getting cut. Important colleagues of mine are getting cut. Kaylee Bufano, one of the most important people, and I've had the pleasure of working with her this year, is getting cut. It's bad. In our school, there's words going around. People are getting fired, or people are not coming back next year. People are getting cut. It feels really bad in our school community right now. Again, don't know much about a budget because what I got in our emails of read this, read that, we had this meeting, emergency meeting. Okay, I live really close. I didn't even know about it until, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes ago. It feels like the communication is lacking between the higher ups and the community, like everybody is saying. We're not involved. We're not understanding. Make it understandable for us. Money is complicated. There are a lot of things that go into it. But line by line, like many people are talking about, break it down for us so that we understand. Again, I'm an educator and I'm still not understanding. So please make it easier for us so that we can all be on the same page.
Any other public comment? Alan, do you have another comment? You can, well, I was gonna say, if you could just email it to the board so that everyone has the same amount of time, just so that we stay fast to the rules.
This is,
If you could email us, I'm sorry.
it has to do with comment that was made about the public unable to get information.
If you could email us and then we'll, just so that we can use the rules, so it's fairness for everyone.
Okay, I make the comment at the next meeting.
With that, we will, since some of the public comment, we will move on. I would actually be looking so that we can get directly into the budgeting. If we could table until next Tuesday, the board members' code of conduct, just so that we can jump into budgeting. Would that be amenable, everyone?
We also have one other board member.
Yes,
Joining us also.
on Tuesday, and then there's other items as part of the order that we have to like vote on paper, we have to vote on different items within that. The other part of tonight that I would like to do is just as a board agreement upon Robert's Rules of Order for small boards. What that does is just reduce the amount of information during or seconding and going through all of that. So it's just one motion and then it can be voted upon the second. Would everyone be okay with adopting Robert's Rules of Order for small boards? With that, we're going to get into financial planning and budgeting and talking about the budget. Just kind of like a thought for tonight, and I know a lot of individuals in the community were wondering, you know, are decisions going to be made tonight? What is exactly the outcome of this meeting? The reason to have this is to get the ball rolling on the budgeting process and to come down to a couple of items. One specifically is part of this conversation I would like to have would be, are we doing an in-person poll or are we doing mail-in, and talk about those two options in terms of timing and what that would look like with the hindsight of looking forward if there was a third potential vote, making sure that we have enough time in that window. So I would defer to Brian and Beth on that part of the conversation. The second one is talking through our upcoming meetings and also thinking through timeline of when we're going to be engaged with the community, how we're going to be getting this out to the community, and especially timeline of when this vote would actually occur. I do have a couple of dates that have been tossed around by individuals. And then the third part of the conversation is starting to talk about specifically bringing the budget down so that there's a certain percent increase, decrease. And what areas of the budget could we be looking at to potentially draw back from? And I know many of you have submitted feedback even before today from the time of the budget failed till now, just feedback around different areas. So having that discussion to help administration have guidance around the areas that we feel as a board that we've been hearing from the community need to be addressed. So with that, where I would like to start is just about timing for the actual vote in itself, so that then we can plan backwards and figure out when would community engagement be, when would the warning need to be, and what method do we want to go about voting. So John Sonic had emailed us today specifically around the topic of when the vote could be either in person or if there is a mail-in ballot. So Brian and Beth, and I can read his email as well, but would you want to give a little bit of voiceover to the two options that we have? And then as a board, kind of take a look at which option we might want to pursue.
Well, the first option that we refer to would be in case of a budget failure. So there's a statute that then requires that you have a failure, you come up with a new budget, you warn that new budget, you have an information hearing no fewer than 5 days after the warning, and a budget vote no fewer than 7 days. That's a great way to do that. So that's the new timeline, opposed to 30 and 40 days of that whole warning. So that's what we have to stay within. However, you can extend it. And so that would be the determination whether the board wants to do a mail to all active registered voters. That could extend the process so that inside of that, it would be 5 weeks. That would be involved to do mailing. If you didn't do that, you'd still have the ability for voters to request absentee ballots. And the part that I can help you with is if you determine there's a certain day of the week that you would prefer to vote, I'm assuming it's probably a Tuesday. So if you start to work that way, you can start to work backwards. So the mailing of ballots is sort of like a super big thing that sort of moves you from a 3-week window to a 5-week window, and probably starts to really challenge you to get a budget.
So I know we as a board got feedback from the town injunction clerk that they felt a mail-in ballot would be a good idea. However, we as a board have to kind of weigh those two things. While a mail-in ballot historically has increased the amount of voter turnout, we also have to think about as a board, if we were to do a mail-in ballot, how far out that puts us. And then if we were to potentially have to do a third vote after that, I believe, Brian, at that point, we would be out of time, correct? Or we'd be pushing it very, very close.
Yes, so there's always a 30-day window for reconsideration. So again, some of this is uncharted territory, but you could, in some of these projections that I put together, you could complete by the 18th of June if you're successful at that point in time. But there would be an opportunity to ask for reconsideration into July. July 1 is sort of you don't stop voting. So the clarification is that you're not required to live by 87% of the previous year's budget. You continue to vote until you get a budget, which could end up being 60% of your last year budget, or it could be 105%. It just, on July 1, they're going to give you an estimated tax rate, and you are not going to get a tax payment sufficient for your costs until you pass a budget, but we are able to borrow. So the 87% isn't like, that's what it is. You just turn into that. You have no.
Hey, Brian, just with that, if we look at that there, the 87% starting there on July 1st, that goes to severely hamstring the district kind of starting from day one, where we're going to talk about positions that should be filled or not going to be filled, or is it just kind of because we're going to get like pieces as we go, we can kind of limit by and we get the budget passed? Yeah,
I mean, the board, there's one window to notify your licensed teachers that fall underneath the teacher agreement, and that window is Monday. And if you don't notify them of reductions of force, they are guaranteed a contract for next year. So that window is the one that's coming up. It's not what the board exercised was worst case scenario. If we go to 3 budget votes or 4 budget votes or 5 budget votes, that's the only flexibility with that 400 plus employees. Now, all the other employees, the support staff, union, the non-union, the administration, they have different notification requirements, but they are not guaranteed by contract to have a notification deadline. So that there's only one group of employees that have that privilege by contract. But right now, since the deadline is Monday, that privilege puts them sort of out front.
Yeah.
And so that's what's happened. Otherwise, there would be no one within the teacher's contract union that could be reduced going into next year that hadn't already resignment or give a retirement and so forth. So, we can keep going, but what's already happening, and maybe I might be exaggerating this with the new landscape of South Burlington continuing to let go of staff, CDU letting go of staff and others, is that the hiring window has been very competitive in the past. And to get the best candidates, you want to try to put positions out and hire people. That would, that again takes the board's flexibility away. You hire someone, you are going to award them a contract for next year now, even ahead of your contract deadline. So those have been held, and we may be losing some great candidates. We also don't have the ability to do recalls, which is part of a reduction in force. And if the position isn't eliminated and the voters vote for a budget and that comes back, then we do that. But that amount of time, if say we go into August or September, obviously people have to move on, but have to find something else. So the time, time is of the essence. But
what I would say, like, just in general, so I think there's two things. One, if we can go back to just defining a RIF in a second, just for clarification to the entire community. But then the second part is around mail-in versus in-person. I always say personally, I feel very strongly that we need to act quickly for the sake of staff, for all staff, because, and the community, we need to have a defined budget, because the longer that this stretches out, the more risk that puts our district in terms of losing real good people. Because if there's a lack of confidence in if a budget will pass, or if it is stretched out for a extremely long period of time, people have to make choices with their lives. So I think out of respect for all staff in the district, we need to be thinking about how do we move this budget vote as quickly as possible. And I know on the flip side, we get more of a turnout with mail-in ballots, but that stretches us out an extra 5 weeks. So my recommendation would be that we move with, for this vote, having an in-person only with the availability of people getting absentee ballots. Are there any thoughts, or would someone like, we would need to make a motion to have that because we need to give that to our clerks, correct?
Yeah, if there's consensus.
Yeah. So
What is the cost difference of doing it in person versus having people have the ability to mail?
So mail-in is a significant cost.
Yeah, the total mail to our three communities is roughly 35,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't be splitting.
We wouldn't be splitting the cost of the city, so.
A little, it's around $40,000.
Yeah, I'm okay with skipping that.
I mean, I would make the motion that we, for expedience's sake and also for cost sensitivity, that we do the in-person vote and we do it as soon as is appropriate once we do our other decision.
So with that, we're all in favor of going in.
Actually, Robert, before we enter that, the question I have to ask is, with mail-in balloting versus in-person, or a combination of both, what has been the voter turnout? We've experienced that over the last 3 years, and if I'm not mistaken, we've had significant increase in voter turnout.
Yeah, we've seen exponentially higher with mail-in ballots.
Yeah, so this is the last 5 years of voter results on our general fund. So the article for our EWSD general fund. Again, back in 2023, the law was changed by the state legislature to require commingling. So those are these last two. But prior to that, you can see that we have been yielding around 27% in our Essex communities, 34%. It's dipped and risen since then. This last one with 5,700 votes is one of the highest turnouts. Before that, we were averaging around 1,000 people participating in an in-person election.
That was in a regular cycle, not in a special cycle, which basically you lower turnout, right?
Now, you quoted mail-in balloting would cost around $40,000, there is a cost associated with in-person voting, is there not?
Yes, there is.
And what would that cost be in your best estimate?
Less than that big cost.
Is it
Yeah,
substantial?
I mean, it's the mail and the postage returned envelope that has been there. Natasha pointed out, we've been splitting that cost. We've been doing it with the city, so a third of that cost has been half. We wouldn't have that now. But I think our general, the payment for the polls, the poll stipends and so forth is sort of, I want to say somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000 that we do in the 3 different communities.
Okay.
And we have the printing of all the ballots, of course. We would print less ballots. One thing that happens with mailing is that we are sending ballots out to 17,000 active, and then we're returning or having in person of 5,700. So it's a lot more ballots than what we would print for an in-person.
Okay. Now,
In-person with absentee.
no, the timeline, if I understand, you could have a possible vote in essence in 3 weeks, correct?
Yeah, again, if the board and I are assuming the same thing, I have a slide here that puts us at today at the top, and the board needs to sort of decide how many times does it want to discuss the budget before warning it. What is its community engagement strategy? What's its communication strategy? How often will it be out? Will it be involving other to be formed organizations or committees? If we went with tonight's board meeting and then 2 more board meetings, we could warn it on a Thursday, have an information meeting the following Tuesday with a vote on May 7th. No. It's really, those dates are the ones to pick up, is that this would have a path for May 7th. If the board wanted to engage longer with its public, that same sequence could happen. And now we're down into May 14th, and the sequence just keeps repeating to that way. So it's really to the degree to what does the board want to do, probably managing both ends of how far does it want to go, and how much does it want to gain as far as input.
Right. An additional comment is if we look at a 3-meeting timeline, I'm not sure how that will work, considering there was considerable comment made about community engagement, etc. So I guess I would advocate possible 4-meeting, and then looking at May 14th as the vote day, because it's only 7 days later than the other projection.
So yeah, we're gonna get into that discussion in just a moment. Right now, we want to just determine which method do we want to use to vote. So right now on the table, the motion's been made specifically for in-person. And right now it's up for vote. So I'll ask the question at this point in time. All in favor of going with in-person over mail-in ballot, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. So we will go with in-person balloting specifically. And then the other piece of this will be going back to figuring out the timing and date of when we would actually be able to hold the vote. Brian, I know we're going to get there in a second, but since we were just talking about it, the date of the vote, the 14th or the 7th or even the 21st, have any of those dates been tossed by election officials to see if there's an availability for that, or that's something we would need to follow up on?
We need to follow up on that, and also availability of polling locations.
Yep.
Brian?
Yeah.
I know that I'm not a member of the board, but I could just say something. So I have discussed this, and John Stein for the EWSD. I did discuss this with the other town clerks. The one thing they've asked for not is the 14th, because the 15th is tax day in Westford, and so that's too much administrative overhead.
We can definitely hit the 21st, and if we're not mailing, then the 7th is also feasible. But they do want a Tuesday, and because people used to vote on Tuesdays, I thought, okay, works.
Thanks, John. Board good with Tuesdays, we'll walk everything back to Wednesday.
Yeah. So we'll look at either the 7th or the 21st in a moment here. With that, we do wanna, I would like tonight when we walk out, know what the date would be, and then let's walk backwards so that we can get out all the communications, find the beginning of next
My
week.
level of confidence that I know all the details and that back them in is greater for the 21st. Because we just need to clear a lot of getting the ballots printed, getting them back, getting them distributed, making them available for absentee requests. I think that if they're not available for request for absentee voting, I think that becomes a problem. I don't think that that's good, that's fair. So we just need to kind of run this timeline to make sure, and we can do that in the next 24 hours.
So, and in my opinion, if we went with the 21st, then that would also give us enough time to squeeze in another vote if necessary for that January or July 1. So the 21st is the same time zone if we're going with in person, which we are. So that gives us enough space within that window of time.
So looking when we voted, which was Tuesday. If you go to the 21st, we're probably not gonna get a vote in before the end of June. If we're gonna keep like this thing out window there, we're probably gonna vote in July. Because we're gonna be cutting it really close. Because if we're doing like that's gonna be 5 weeks. Yeah, we're not gonna get a vote in June, we're gonna get a vote in July.
Sorry, Mark, I believe the process after the second vote would not require as much time. Deliberation. I believe that what we are discussing now in terms of cuts, what we determine, I believe if we have to do something in addition to that, we'll already be down a path where those decisions are going to require less deliberation.
Good.
So if it takes 4 weeks now, I can't imagine it would take 4 weeks if we have to do it.
Well, right now it's gonna be 5 weeks. So I'm saying that my worry is that if we extrapolate that window out again, we get to the end of May, and then we're gonna go to this again. We're gonna be right back at the table on the 23rd, do this again, and we're gonna look at the next window and 5 weeks to put us, like either on the last day of June or first of July. I don't know if it falls off the top of my head, but we're gonna be bumping this window again.
So are you looking at the 7th is better than the 21st?
That's why let's talk about it.
Okay.
That's all I want to do, like you said, the will of the board is we go with 21st, and I'm fine with it. I don't want to toss up the window immediately because again, let's be blunt, we have folks who are in this room and folks who are not in this room that this vote is, they want to know how to play because it's going to affect their livelihoods. So I'm trying to find a balance between making sure we talk to the committee, we inform them, but also making sure we can leave our community members and non-community members who work in our district in limbo forever. You know, we have to find that balance. And so I just want to at least have a conversation before we just lock in a date and just go with it, because it just doesn't work. Right. I agree with you. There might be less conversation, we've already cut stuff, but we're going to go through the same process again.
I mean, if we're up to as a board to determine the 7th or the 21st night, I would like to vote on that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just put out there, I'd like to hear from the rest of the board and not just be these going out there. If the rest of the board, has other concerns or disagrees, I'm fine with that. I just want to at least have that conversation.
Brian, could we go back to the slides in terms of the timeline, just to see when would we need to warn the budget by in order to vote on the 7th?
Brian, is it possible?
I'm gonna try to,
spare that?
yep, I'm trying to, let's make it like it.
Thanks, Brian.
So we go with the 7th.
To get to the 7th means that you have 2 board meetings and then you warn, which means you would approve a budget to go to your voters on the 23rd. We would warn that. You'd have an information meeting on the 30th and you would vote on May 7th. Now, again, my confidence is just that matter of just confirming. I just want to recognize I don't know for certain, so I can't provide you that certainty that between that warning and us going, when do we get the ballots back so that they're available to be requested for absentee voting? And I think that, you know, if we find that it's 2 days before the election, I think that you have to have some conversation of whether that feels like it's the right thing to do or not the right thing to do. But again, the deadline is one of those that if you warned there and we needed more time to get the ballot, more time to do that, then you just kind of pushing on it. There's no way to preload this thing so that at warning you're ready to go. Warning is actually the beginning of the process. And
Okay,
then
so if I'm understanding correctly, you could say tonight the 7th, I'm just throwing this out there, if we said the 7th. But understanding that you have to then check some of these pieces to make sure that they're gonna fit. Like, we don't know some of these pieces tonight, right? Like,
Right.
and maybe we as a board could say, well, then, if those supportive pieces could meet the 7th, then maybe we would say the 21st. Once again, trying to help with some of that back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but the statistics don't work, they don't work.
Right.
Again, I want to at least make attempts. And we owe it to not just the community, but everybody who works in our community. And try our best to try to get this budget done. It's be a matter. Yeah.
And
It's an awful place to be.
And I also, just to set the tone and for us as a board, our headspace sort of is I know we have to talk about that next date, but I think we as a board really need to be focusing on this is going to be the vote. We're going to listen, we're going to get done what we need to get done, and we're going to put our very best out there for the voters, right? So we're thinking contingency, but we really want to be, so doing whatever we need to do in this time frame.
I just want to point out, because it was pointed out to me, is that April 23rd would be a meeting that would be pretty substantial. It would be a meeting that you would be reviewing and deciding whether you're going to put forward a certain budget to the voters. You can take a vacation. We typically do not hold school board meetings during April vacation for a host of reasons. But I think that it could be seen as making it difficult for your constituency to attend and meet them.
Could we have an online option for that?
I'm sure we could take a look at it. I'd have to understand like what we were looking for, but there may be some possibilities. I was thinking people, are going to be highly interested in both this and being on April vacation. And
Well,
so,
I think the other thing too is, for teachers and for staff, like administration, that's really a time when probably a lot of people have plans, they want to try to relax, they want, I don't know, obviously I wasn't thinking vacation, but maybe given that information, we should be thinking then of the 21st.
Also, the beginning of the night, is a very busy time for students and staff.
Yeah.
Okay, my point on this is I know we've heard Tuesday, we know we've heard May 14th as a problem. We all signed up to do the work. And this is a really important time for us to be available to do the work. And I, for one, am willing to meet more than a Tuesday in a given week.
Yep.
If we have to meet 2 times, 3 times in a week to hear recommendations from Beth and Brian and others. This is critical we have a staff of about 900 people that are on pins and needles until the next vote. And I'm okay in meeting how often we need to meet, how often we want to engage with the public. I think if we're out Tuesdays being the only time we can meet as a board, and we meet as often as we need to, I still believe though the 7th should be our target. If logistically it works and we commit ourselves to put in the work and inform the public between now and then.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. We're meeting right now, our assessment going on right now, and I know we've gotten time for that. And I'm saying the same thing I said to the board itself. This budget, this community is more important than one night. And by our side, I'm not saying it's not important, but if you think that there's going to be more fun nights are going to be the same, if we don't have a budget, then you're sadly mistaken. This is more important. So if you don't have a problem with us trying to get this work done, this to me is much more important. So we continue to fire respect. We have homecomings, like every other night that we have that are traditions of our community. All those things are irrelevant if we don't get a budget passed. So, and I will say again, I'm the one who pushed it. You know, so the rest of the board, and we'll talk this about other questions again, because I did not appreciate folks attacking board members for that and the administration for that. This is important. And if you don't think it's important, then I ask you to kind of reevaluate the priorities because we care about the entire community here. So I agree, Scott. I'll put as many nights as we have to make sure this happens, because this is the most important thing. So.
Okay, so
Well,
back to seven.
Yes, so we need to, and I like, but the bottom line of all of this goes back to the one comment that Scott made is staffing are on these people's and we owe it to them to do this quickly. So with that, I'd be looking for a motion to hold our vote, which would mean that we would warn by Thursday, the 25th.
Yes.
25th, and then we will hold our in-person vote on May 7th with locations TBD. Those we will release quickly. So,
And then do we want to add to that, just in case those factor pieces don't fit, that we would then?
Yeah, we could,
The 21st?
we could
Okay.
jump this to potentially warn it on Wednesday. It's officially warned when it's been published in the Free Press.
Okay.
Or, well, you reorg.
Right.
Whatever we
Our
can.
next
Yeah.
meeting
So
on
actually,
Tuesday will Tuesday.
been advised that 7 days now, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so 7 days is actually newspaper record, so that is a little bit faster.
Hi, Aaron, I just want to be clear, if the motion, there was a lot of words in that motion. I also am not just in favor of the 7th to the 21st. I would be okay with the 8th or 9th. I know Tuesday is recommended, but again, I'm in favor of hitting early. So I guess I don't want the motion to include the 21st if we're okay and still discussing alternate dates.
I
Thank
would
you for
say,
that info.
but I would say that I would strongly advocate for it to still be a Tuesday. I would strongly advocate. I think that's something that's,
Taking the recommendation from John, I think that is the way to go, but I think maybe.
but right, given this information, I know we have.
Well, it seems like there's more of it.
Yes.
Well, I just wanted to mention that it takes up to a week to get ballots printed and here. So if you warn it on the 25th, we will not have ballots before the 1st of June. So there will not be time for any absentees or anything like that, because we would know that we would get to the people that will come back to us before that.
Or more earlier, so at the very least, let's set the date for the 7th. So do I have a motion to hold our EWSD revote on the 7th?
So I'll make the motion.
Move. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so our vote will officially be on May 7th with more information to follow. And tonight we won't officially decide how we're wording it. We'll try to act as quickly as we can. As to what John was saying, if we were able to act any earlier than that and warn earlier, then that would allow us to get absentee ballots out.
More meetings.
Yes, like, yeah, so we can add that as well. The other part, which we'll talk about in a moment, is around specifically community engagement, when we'll add some meetings. We do have one planned for Tuesday night, the 16th, that is our next warrant meeting. But we will definitely be adding more to the calendar.